Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads. We continue with Pinocchio. Chapter 13. Fairy makes Pinocchio a promise. The flower-covered Pinocchio closed his eyes and prepared to meet his bride fate. But just as the fisherman was about to drop the pup in the pan, a large dog who smelled the cooking oil ran to the cave. The fisherman shooed him away, but the dog continued to beg and whine. "I said get out!" the fisherman yelled, giving the dog a kick. The dog growled and showed its fangs in response. Pinocchio's eyes were too filled with flour to see, but he recognized the growl. In a tiny, flower-filled voice, he cried, "Alidoro, is that you? Save me, or I am fried!" Alidoro recognized that voice. It was Pinocchio, the puppet who had saved him from drowning. Surely one great save deserved another. With one leap, he grasped the puppet gently in his teeth and ran out the door. Some safe distance away, Alidoro laid Pinocchio down on the ground. "Thank you," Pinocchio cried. "You saved my life," Alidoro said. "I simply returned the favor." Two shook hands, or rather paw and wood, and vowed to be good friends forever. Then they went their separate ways. "Oh, I hope Fairy will forgive me," he thought as he continued on his way. When he arrived at the village, it was so dark he could barely see. Just as he arrived at Fairy's house, it started to rain. Pinocchio was so nervous he was afraid to knock. He simply stood there getting soaked. Finally, he worked up his courage and reached out and banged the door. He waited and waited, and after about an hour and a half an hour, a fourth-floor window opened and a large snail looked out. "Who knocks at this late hour?" she called. "Is Fairy home?" asked the puppet. "Who are you?" "Pinocchio," the puppet replied. "Oh," the snail said. "Wait here, I'll come down and open the door." "Hurry!" Pinocchio cried. "I am a snail," she said. "Snails are slow." She wasn't kidding. An hour passed, then two, and still no snail. But then Pinocchio was so cold and wet that he couldn't stop shivering. Out of desperation, he knocked again and was dismayed to see a window on the third floor open. A second later, the snail looked out. "I'm coming," she called down cheerfully. "Dear snail," Pinocchio cried, "I've been here for 2 hours. Can you really? I've only made it to the third floor." "I am so cold and tired. Please hurry." "I am a snail," the snail said. "Haven't you heard? Snails are slow." Pinocchio couldn't stand it anymore. He had to go inside. He stepped back and kicked the door so hard that his foot went straight through and his body almost fell behind it. He tried to pull back, but found that his foot was stuck. Poor Pinocchio. Meanwhile, the rain continued to fall. The extremely slow snail probably wasn't even on the second floor yet. 9 hours later, the door finally opened. "Whew!" the snail exclaimed out of breath from her effort. "I am getting too old to rush like that. What are you doing with your foot through the door?" "It's a long story," Pinocchio said. "Please tell me I'm stuck. Call Fairy. She is sleeping and doesn't want to be disturbed." She waited. Wow, he waited 9 hours for him to tell her that. Wow. Also, Pinocchio's really patient. He waited 9 hours. "Well, what am I supposed to do?" Pinocchio asked. "Can you at least bring me something to eat?" "Immediately," the snail replied. The slowest waitress in the world, she returned almost 3 hours later with some chicken, bread, and flour-ripe apricots. "Compliments of Fairy," the snail said cheerfully. Pinocchio lunched for the food, overjoyed, until as he took a bite and realized the food was fake. The bread was made of chalk, the chicken of cardboard, and the fruit of colored clay. Yuck! What cruel joke was this? He was so disappointed and cold and hungry and tired he fainted. When he awoke, he found himself on his sofa with Fairy looking down on him. "Do you forgive me?" he asked quietly. "This time," Fairy said, "we must promise to never get in trouble again." Pinocchio promised and kept his word. "After a year of perfect behavior," Fairy said, "well, I must say I'm impressed. You've kept your promise and have been a very good boy. As a reward, tomorrow your wish will finally come true. You will stop being a puppet and turn into a real boy." Pinocchio was overjoyed. "We must have a party to celebrate my becoming a boy," he cried. He decided that he would invite all his friends and schoolmates. Fairy promised to prepare 200 cups of hot chocolate and 400 pieces of cake with whipped cream. Oh, what a party it would be! And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.